So this is an actual plan that I put together for a multi-seven-figure agency of what my first 45 days would look like if I came onto their team to double EBITDA. And my name is Kyle Hunt, and I'm an agency operations expert. And in my last video, I went over my one-year goals. Today, we're going to go over the first 45 days. And I consider this the foundations because you can fix things that are outside of this. But if you don't get these things correct, you're going to have to go back and fix this anyway. So this initial stage is going to require a lot of work from the founder and the leadership team. And once we have strategic assessment and alignment complete, then we can focus on ongoing improvement. But the current state in this agency was very reactive, from service planning, and that is how they went about creating services, to fixing bad numbers, which means how they root cause analysis any of bad KPIs, which they weren't doing, to how they reacted to errors because they weren't really fixing errors. They were fixing errors reactively other than proactively. So my goal with this was to be proactive, not reactive. So when I first was discussing with this agency owner, I was like, we can do this one or two ways. The first way is we can spend like a week and a half with myself and you and the leadership team and just bang all this out, or we can spend a couple hours each day to complete this as quickly as possible. Up to you. So, and in this instance, he wanted to just spend a couple hours every morning to work on this, but it can work either way. These are time estimates that I have for each of these in total, how long it would take. But just so you have some context here, the first thing I would do is review the founder's calendar. And usually I find when I work with agency owners that I can free up about 10% of their calendars just by removing stuff that they shouldn't be spending any time on, delegating some things to other team members, or just straight up removing stuff that's like, this makes no sense. Why are you spending time on this? And this is so they can spend more time with me and the team. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing would be spending time on strategic planning. And this is usually half day to a day. And that includes things like revising the mission, vision, and values. And first time CEOs will always scoff at this. But if you don't have alignment from the very, very top of what you're trying to accomplish, then all this is going to be very difficult to figure out. And the corollary to this is there was an agency that I was consulting for, and their mission was to serve 1 million agency owners. But their clients were multiple 8-figure B2B brands, and they only had a handful of them. So the mission did not align with the reality of their business, and we changed their mission. But that's just an example of how, if you're trying to create strategies and priorities and things we're going to talk about later based on your mission and your vision, and this is wrong, all this is going to be wrong too, because you're going to make very different operational decisions if you're trying to serve 1 million people versus 50 B2B businesses that are multiple 8 figures. The second thing I would do then is work with them to create strategies. And these strategies are usually 3 to 4 pillars that we believe are going to make the agency really successful. And that could be around hiring people. That could be around creating a moat around our lead gen strategies. It could be offering the best client services or competing on operational excellence. Whatever those things are, we implement these as pillars to the agency, and everything that we do should be based on those things. So from these strategies, we create a 3-year target, and that's where we want to be in 3 years. And then from that 3-year target, we look forward to see what can we accomplish in 1 year. And then based on this 1-year target, what are our priorities? And this isn't an exercise where it's like, oh, I wish that we had 40% net margins at $5 million EBITDA in year 3. It's like, based on what we know about the business, what can we do in terms of action that can actually get us here? And then look back on what can we do to get us here? And then what are the priorities that we need to implement here in order to get us here? So this is based on the reality of the business, not based on aspirations. And then the most difficult part of this is deselecting anything that's not aligned to this. So all the shiny objects that like the founder has and the team has, if we know that these strategies will help us reach these targets, and we know that these priorities will help us reach these targets, by definition, anything that is not these things will get us either here slower or it's not going to get us there at all. So we need to deselect anything that's not critical. And then we would create an implementation plan on how to actually implement all of this. And there's a sheet that I have that I can give to you guys if you put in the comments on how I go about all this, or maybe I'll make another video on it. But this would be like day 1. And then, so this company actually needed a structural reorg, and this would take quite a long time. This would take 24 to 32 hours of work. And first, this would be creating an accountability chart. I don't really use EOS terms that often, but this is from EOS, from Traction. And an accountability chart is just an org chart that lists what people are accountable for. So their top 3 to 5 things they're accountable for. because they didn't have a great org chart, let's just say. So this would be the first thing, like who's in what seat. We need to understand that. And the second thing that I would do is then once we know this, I wanted to have a reorg around service lines and pods. So this is a little bit different from a lot of the shared service models that you're going to see in an agency. But a service line would be any service that you sell that has an end-to-end process. So this would be like email is a service, paid media is a service, creative is a service, growth as a service if you're doing financial projections. So all those things are services, and each one of those needs to have a leader, an expert who is the best in the world at those things, so they can help coach and train the people who are on their team. So we have service lines for functional expertise, and then we have pods. And pods are cross-functional groups of team members that work together on a given group of clients. So we might have 5 clients in pod 1, and it's going to have the same group of people that are working on those 5 clients. And that allows them to get client-specific expertise and build relationships with those individual clients. If you have shared services, there's a lot of cons that come with that. It's very difficult for a team to focus on 30 clients if they're not seeing them consistently. You'd rather have them focus on fewer clients. And then it's also difficult to compensate them as well because they're touching all the clients. You want a small little business unit on its own, its own little pod, so you can have the focus and you can have the compensation models to correctly incentivize. So this would be a big part of the strategy, is just reorganizing around service lines and pods. And this removes so many issues around like revisions and errors and lead times that are really important KPIs that we look at once we reorg and put people in pods. And then lastly, related to the structural reorg, is we want to make sure that we have financial reporting that ties to each service line and then to each pod as well, because this agency had a CFO and he would just show the whole agency. But I want to be like, from a service line perspective, how profitable is A service, how profitable is B service? And then from a pod level, how profitable is pod A, pod B, pod C, and are they meeting our targets? Because we want to have anywhere between 60 to 80% gross margins in our pods, meaning that our cost to deliver those things between software and people and whatever else is in there needs to be anywhere from 20 to 40%. So we can hit our company margin targets. Then I would spend some time on our marketing strategy. And the biggest impact on this is ensuring that we're actually marketing to the correct clients. So we want to refine our ICP, and your ICP is just your ideal client. And you want to look at this from like an 80-20 perspective, meaning, and I would take this even further than this, to the 64-4. So the 64-4 is just one iteration further of an 80-20. And it's who are the 4% of clients that we have that want to drive 60% of our revenue if we give them the chance. So you're really looking not at like, who are our best clients? It's like, what's the like handful of really core clients we have that drive the most LTV? And I would look at this based on QuickBooks. You can look at cohort data for LTV. So this company had a few years of data on there. So I'm like, okay, let's pull up QuickBooks. Let's look at which customers have paid us the most over the last few years or that we project to. So that's qualifier number 1. And then the second part is who's really easy for us to work with. Because if they stay with us for a long time, but it's like really a pain in the ass to do it, it might not be a business model that we want to do. Depends upon the agency owner there. But like the ideal scenario would be the client pays you a lot of money over a long time and it's super easy to service and you have great relationships with them. And then this is the difficult part of this. You want to now revolve your entire business around this person, this type of person. Like all your marketing, all your lead gen, all your sales, all your operations should now be geared towards whoever this is. And whether this is vertical specific or size specific or the type of founder, whatever this is, like the entire business needs to now be changed to go after this person. And the reason is because you know this type of person pays you more than anybody else, and you know they're easier to work with than anybody else that you've worked with. So why would you not build your business around this person? And the answer is usually because we have a lot of other clients and it's very difficult. But this is what it takes to really scale a business, is you have to lose some people in order to bring on better people. The second part of this is refining offers and pricing. So this agency only sold single month contracts, and sometimes there'd be large contracts, but they had no continuity, which is like crazy to me, no continuity contracts on a creative agency. And even more crazy is they don't have any performance contracts, or they had like 1 or 2 performance contracts. And those contracts also happen to be their highest billable clients that they were working with. So I'm like, well, let's fix the operations and then we can move on to a continuity or even better, a performance model. Because I know just based on the market, they could double average revenue per client just by moving to performance. So like this one thing alone could double EBITDA if operations could handle it. So this was an important part of this. And then ensuring that we have a process for weekly continual content as well would be part of the strategy. Like, how do we get the team excited about helping us to create content? And what type of content can we create that's really easy operationally? So that could be things like case studies. It could be things like behind the scenes. It could be lead magnets. But we really want to have the team help us on this. So we're not like the only person creating content here. And this is probably different from what other people would tell you. But like the whole team should be involved in this as much as possible. And this also gets them really invested, thinking about how we're always winning. So there's some additional people benefits behind this as well when you feel like you're always winning as a team. Okay, another challenge for this company was lead gen. All their leads were referral based. And I'm like, guys, the CEO is talking to one lead a day, I think. Guys, like we need to book this guy's calendar. And there were a few different ways we wanted to go about doing that. The first one was through partnerships and through platforms. So they were single service agency, really easy to build partnerships with other single service agencies where you don't compete. And you can either revenue share with those agencies, or what I prefer even better is referring clients and vice versa. I have relationships with a couple of agency owners already who are interested in this. So this would have been very easy. Small events, newsletters, influencers, affiliates. One of the co-founders of this agency was already doing small events and it was working for them. Not at the level of referrals. This was still very small. But I'm like, okay, if it's working, let's double down on it. And then I can handle a newsletter. And because this guy's not going to be busy all day, the CEO doing these partnerships, like we can also do some influencer and affiliate things. And I see these influencer affiliate partnerships as all outbound that kind of falls under the same umbrella. So they're technically different channels, but the process is the same for them. So it's not really much additional operational drag, if that makes sense, because you can do all this just through cold email or LinkedIn DMs. So it would not be like we're adding a whole nother channel really. But that would be this for automated cold email and cold DM. And this would be through some things that I'll get to. The next would be attacking and resolving bottlenecks. So we wanted to make sure that from a data perspective, they weren't really tracking that many KPIs. And this is really common in agencies that I talk to. I'm like, hey, what are the KPIs you track? And they're like revenue, churn, maybe if we're lucky, profit. So we really want to get the operational excellence KPIs that we look at on a consistent basis for each of those service lines and pods. So what percentage of our clients are meeting performance targets? What's our revision percentage? What's our error rate per pod? What's the lead time per pod? And these are all really process-based KPIs that we look at on a regular basis, usually weekly with the team, to ensure that the leading indicators that lead us to the result we want, which is a lot of profit and low churn, are consistently getting met. And that's how you proactively look at KPIs versus reactively look at KPIs, which most agencies do. The second part of this was working with the owner to get lead gen and sales in HubSpot because they had just transitioned to HubSpot but had basically no reporting on it and they weren't really using it. And then I wanted to install ClickUp because they had no project management system, which is like pretty insane at a multi 7-figure level. And I figured this would take probably 20 to 30 hours for me to work with the team on this. I already have the framework for it, but training the team and getting videos set up and everything, that would be pretty time intensive. And then the last part of this is meeting with top clients and team members. I probably meet with 2 to 3 clients per week, team members initially by group and then one-on-one. But this would be in the first week, like making sure that people know who I am and they can come to me, and that my goal is really to make their lives easier, establishing relationships, identifying key opportunities based off what clients say they value and what they dislike, and what team members say they really like and dislike, and then just generally understanding the business dynamics because like I'm not a UGC expert. And in fact, most agencies that I'm working with, I'm not the skill expert at all. But that's okay because my job as an agency operator isn't to be the best in the world at any of those services. It's to be the best in the world at making people perform better. So if you want, man, this went way, way, way over. But if you want any more content like this, let me know. Thank you.